welcome back to Sharks Happen. My name is Hal, I am your host, going over shark attacks from the 1900s till present, mostly large sharks, and we're going to get started right away. We're going to head over to Mermaid Waters. That is in Queensland, Australia, the date November 2nd, 1989. Kristoffer Fredrickson, he is 10 years old, he and a couple friends, they live, sounds like Kristoffer or one of the boys live right on the canal. It sounds like it's Kristoffer's house, and they go swimming out in the canal. No telling distance from the shore or the depth of the water, even the time. But Kristoffer goes out there and he feels a fish rub along his leg, and he noticed that he felt that it had sliced his leg as it went by. Now it turned around, came back and grabbed onto his leg, and now it's trying to drag him into deeper water. He said that he kicked it a couple times and then he had to just finally let go, and he swam as fast as he could to the shore. He said he was grossed out. He couldn't believe it was disgusting how his foot and ankle looked after the shark had bitten him. So he gets in, he ends up with 2 sets of surgeries at least. I saw an update after the attack in my news archives. It was a couple days, he had 2 rounds of surgeries, over 108 stitches to take care of his wounds. He had 18 individual teeth marks in him from this bite, so it probably bit him in the lower leg. His whole leg is bandaged up from looks like just below the knee down. I'm going to post a link to this story. There's an interview I saw a Facebook site when I go through and I'm researching. I saw a Facebook site, I clicked on that, and it's an interview with this kid. Is so cute. So I'll post a link to the Facebook interview in the description so that you'll have that, and we're going to put this down. They said it's up to a 2-meter shark that they think might be a bronze whaler, could be a bull shark. And they're thinking bronze whaler, bull shark on that, around 2 meters in length. So we are going to count this. We're going to put it down as an attack, not an attempt to predate. We're not sure what type of shark. Okay, now we're going to head over to Soleto or Chileto Beach, which is in New South Wales, Australia. The date, February 7th of 2009. Durwin Keg, he is 41 years old, and he is out doing some surfing with some friends. There's about 5 of them in the water. A couple of them are in shallower water, but he and 2 other friends, Durwin, they are 220 yards from shore. So they're quite a ways from shore. They've got a couple friends that are in shallower. They're sitting out there. It's 11 o'clock in the afternoon. No telling how deep the water is. Durwin's 2 friends, they catch a wave and they make their way in. Now he's sitting out there 220 yards from shore, sitting on his board waiting on a wave. He's probably looking behind him, looking for a wave so he can start paddling, catch up to it, and grab the wave. Well, he turns around and looks, and he sees in the water a shadow is moving, and it gets about 4 yards from him, about 10, 12 feet from him, and he determines it's a large shark. And he starts paddling his way in. He starts paddling as fast as he can, and all of a sudden the shark was following him, and now the shark came up underneath his board and slammed the bottom side of his board, knocking Durwin into the water. So now Durwin's in the water. The shark starts to circle the board, so Durwin gets back on the board, but as the shark is circling, it stops the circling and makes that beeline for him, and it's going in for another attack. He falls off the side of the board and pushes it over, just like the story we just went over. Pushes the board towards the shark. The shark grabs the board and now is swimming with the board. The ankle leash has got him, so now Durwin's being dragged by the shark. The shark finally stops dragging him and the board, and Durwin ends up on top of the shark. He's kind of laying on the shark now when the shark stops. So he screams to his friend Shark. He punches the shark about 3 or 4 times, and the shark submerges. He climbs back on his board and starts making his way back in. Shortly after he starts paddling in, the shark surfaces just behind his board and follows him about 100 feet in. So it follows him 100 feet of probably the 300 feet he had to go, and probably took off then, but it did follow the board quite a ways, but luckily no injury to Durwin whatsoever. The board ended up with a dent. We're going to put this down as an attack, not an attempt to predate. No injury to Durwin Keg and his surfboard. Okay, now we're going to head over to a small beach on Acton Island, and that is in Vanuatu. The date, June 3rd, 1984. Felix Brem, he is on his honeymoon. He is going to go for a swim This attack is reported by the telephone operator for the island there, for Acton Island. He claims, his name was Mr. Jackie Willis, he claims that his father had warned Mr. Brem not to go swimming in the water, that there's a shark out there that's been terrorizing the beach. So, you know, Felix ended up telling the father, I'll stay close to shore. Sure enough, he goes out swimming, and the operator says that shortly after he went out, he stayed close to shore. But a bunch of beachgoers had to sit there and watch as he ends up getting grabbed by a shark, dragged out into deeper water, and then repeatedly attacked. So it sounds like it wasn't the biggest shark. They don't identify the shark. But we've had a little, you know, 5-6 footer. I think it was 6 or 7 footer that dragged, I can't even remember his name, Fredrickson, I believe. I believe he was dragged out, and then 3 sharks attacked him. One bull shark brought him out, about a 6-foot bull shark, took him out of the deeper water where they saw 3 fins converge. Sounds like the same thing happened here, just that one shark ended up attacking him. It's a fatality. The people could not do anything to help him. Like, you know, once the shark dragging you off, unless you have some kind of a, you know, watercraft in the area, there's nothing you're really going to be able to do for them. So Felix Brem ends up being attacked and consumed by at least a 6-foot shark, but we don't know what kind. So we're putting it down as an attack, consume, and the kind of shark is unknown. Okay, now we're going to head over to Huntington State Beach, and that is in California, and the date is August 18th of 2009. Connor Lyons, he is 22 years old, and he is out doing some morning fishing from the kayak with 2 friends. They're all on their kayaks, they're out there, they went ahead and caught squid early on, so they caught the squid to use for bait, and they end up at their fishing grounds, and the fishing grounds has quite a few boats at it, squid boats, some other boats are there, and they're fishing along with them. He said there was a lot of bait in the water, there were seals around, but they were acting erratic. Eventually his kayak floats over into calmer waters, and as soon as it does, it's about 7:30 in the morning, and he says that his front of his kayak gets grabbed, it gets slapped. So the shark comes up and grabs the kayak. It didn't bust it up out of the water like normal, but it came up and now it's got it in its mouth and it's thrashing it, and it takes the kayak finally and turns it sideways, dumping Connor into the water with the shark. As soon as Connor hits the water, he gets up and he's trying to get back onto the now overturned kayak with no possibility to get up there. The shark disappears. He's screaming to the other boats, and pretty soon a shrimp boat comes right over and picks him up out of the water. And his kayak ends up with an 18-inch wide bite to it. They said this was a 13-foot, they think, great white shark. You know, it could be some other type of shark, but the great whites are the ones that do it the most. But great whites usually hit them hard from underneath, so maybe it was a bronze whaler that grabbed that thing from the side and dumped him out. But my guess would be a great white shark. We're going to put this down as an attack, not an attempt to predate on a kayak. Okay, now we head over to Humboldt Bay to a spot known as Bunkers, a surf spot we have covered before. That is in Eureka, California, and the date is October 30th of 2012. Scott Stevens, he is 25 years old. He is out doing some surfing. It's noon, and he is lying on his board about 500 yards from shore. It doesn't say that he was paddling, but he's laying there, so he's probably waiting on a wave. 500 yards from shore in 20 feet deep water. Now, he's in a sandy bottom area, but he's not too far from where there's a 50-foot drop-off. So he's very close to a drop-off out where he's waiting on this wave. And 500 yards is very far from shore for a surfer. Suddenly, he's grabbed. He's grabbed by the torso and pulled under the water by a shark, which takes and shakes him violently, not once but twice, and that's where you get these terrible injuries from these. Shark releases him after shaking him twice, and he's able to pop to the surface, climb onto his board, and then paddle and ride a wave in. Now, when he gets in, luckily, there's number one, there's one of the surfers there is an EMT and another surfer. So this EMT and another surfer, they go to work right away on him. They're trying to close this wound on him. Now, the wound, it's a horrific wound. Like I said, it shook him twice, but it was very close to being a Lewis Boren deal. It ripped right through the board on the bottom. So the bottom jaws went right through the board and took a chunk out, you know, It's a pretty decent sized chunk for the lower jaw. And in the upper jaw, it caused huge lacerations. They said 4 incisions of about 12 inches from his armpit down to his hip. So he's got huge, just open gashes. These guys are trying to hold him in. They took care of him until the paramedics got there and were able to deal with it. But one of the surfers was laying down on him to keep these wounds closed. They had to keep that much pressure on him that the guy was just laying on him to keep his wounds closed. The one medical tech that showed up to deal with it, the paramedic said, I would have never thought to lay on a victim like that, but it seemed to have worked. He gets in, he gets repaired. They said this was a 13-foot great white shark that grabbed a hold of him, took him under and shook him twice. The board is damaged. He ended up with a lot of damage. Luckily he survives, and probably due to the 2 gentlemen on the, these surfers that take care of their own. They certainly took care of him. He would not be with them. He would not be around today, I should say, if it wasn't for those 2 surfers that were there. Luckily one was an EMT, but they were both fast thinkers. They did mention how much pressure they had to put onto the wounds to try to cut the bleeding. So very bad attack, very close to being, fatal. If that thing would have bit a little bit harder, it would have just went through everything, just like with Louis Boren. And I don't think you can survive something like that from the side. As deep as it went in, it would be taking organs and stuff. And that's what they were holding in when they were putting pressure, was to keep all the organs and everything where they're supposed to be, at least inside of his body. So that's our attack on Scott Stevens, an attack, not an attempt to predate, by a 13-foot great white shark. Okay, now we're going to finish out our unprovoked attacks over off of Mbibi, which is over in South Africa. The date, May 3rd, 1979. Alan Symons, or Symons, he is a novice scuba diver, and he is going out diving with a group of 3 others. It sounds like 3 others, could be 4. They enter the water before noon, and they're swimming out to a location. So they have a site they want to dive, and they're going to snorkel their way over to this site before they start doing their dives. Alan's with the group. They all swim over, and once they meet up where they wanted to meet up, Alan's not seen. So Alan's already gone. They look a little bit, they can't find him, they notify authorities. This happened just after noon at 4 o'clock. There's a large search party set out, they can't find anything. 3 days after the attack, swim fin, size 8 or 9, which would probably be his size, it shows up a couple miles from where he disappeared. So 2 miles away they find a swim fin, but they don't find any markings on it that wouldn't be your normal scrapes and scratches from just normal use, kicking the coral and everything you're doing when you're in the water. So 9 days after the attack, roughly 9 miles away, they find his wetsuit, and they find it with a large shark obviously was chewing on him when he was in the suit, but the leg is turned inside out again. So we have another person that was ripped out of a suit. How else are you going to get a leg turned inside out? So whatever shark grabbed a hold of him ended up ripping him out of his suit so hard that his leg turned inside out on the suit. But they found the suit, and then of course they get into the, well, we can't tell. It's impossible to say whether he was alive when he was taken. I don't know about impossible, because I'm going to say it's an attack, it's a predation, we don't know what kind of shark. That was really easy. I mean, impossible. You can't imagine, you can't look through any other attacks. These people seem to collect attacks like some people used to collect Facebook friends, and they just have them and they never go through them and never look at them. That's how I'm the one who ended up, noticing who shoulder was bit off and head was bit off. My boy Baldrich, it was in his book, but I found both attacks in 1970, one saying an unidentified male and the other one giving his name, both with the same details. The same files say, oh, there's never been an attack, a great white attack in Florida waters, yet you have the MD, the doctor down there, Dr. Morgan, down there spearfishing, he got bitten thumb. They won't claim that Christy Wapnorski was a great white, but that's a great white fatality in Florida waters, just 4 miles off the coast, up to 4 miles off the coast. They were making their way back in when she was attacked, but she was held unnaturally high out of the water and shaken around. You need to think. You need to look at other attacks and see what happens. I haven't seen a bull shark lift somebody high up out of the water and hold them there. I haven't seen a tiger shark do it. I haven't seen any other shark. I see a white shark do it all the time with Robert Pamprin, with the Dyer Island diver, Christy Wapnarski. She was up out of the water, so much so they could see the wound to her leg. So you know, you can tell sometimes by what's going on in these attacks what kind of a shark it is. That's an extreme situation, and that's the same thing with like the bull shark. The bull shark will grab you and always want to just drag you down into the water, or if you're in the shallows, it always wants to take you out into the deeper water. It's just one of those things it wants to do. The great white doesn't always tend to do that, and tiger shark just goes around biting things. It doesn't even, you know, I don't even think it works up a sweat when it does it. It's just going to bite something that's around it because it's around it. So that's my take on the big three there. But I mean, you know, let's start calling these what they are. They have over, like I said, they have 600 attacks they call invalid that are like this because somebody disappeared and nobody saw it. That's the only thing. Nobody saw it. You can put two and two together by the story. The guy wasn't found by a search party. He wasn't found by his friend. They're finding things miles away and flipped inside out, and yet they, you know, it's impossible to tell. Well, I can tell you because he disappeared swimming out to meet his friends. That's when he was taken by the shark. So, you know, that's our story of Alan Symons, an attack, a predation. We don't know what kind of shark, and now we're going to get into the end of the show. What were you thinking? Okay, now, before we get to the end of the show, I wanted to bring up a couple things. First of all, we're almost at 60,000 subscribers. It's just ridiculous. I'm still stunned that I have 100. So I love that everybody is interested in these stories. I mean, yeah, we're just going over stories and the shark attacks that happen, but we're going through them and we're actually analyzing them. Something that's not done and hasn't been done, I don't think, since H. David Baldrige at the Shark Attack Files funded by the Navy. So I love that everybody that's watching. Like I said, I'm just amazed by how this is going. Another thing I wanted to say, the comments. I've meant to say in the last show, I had a couple comments that had questions. I wanted to just address them now. I wanted to address them in the last show, but one person asked me about the Azores, about 2022 attack in the Azores. I looked in the Azores. I think it's the Azores that they were asking about. So I looked up for a 2022 attack in the Azores in my newspaper archives and online. I can't find anything more recent than 2010, and there's only about 5 or 6 attacks total that I can see over off the Azores. So I cannot find anything on that. So it's the 2022 attack. I want to let you know that I cannot find anything. If you find anything, let me know, because right now, you know, I can't find nothing. Another thing, another person had mentioned that Valerie Taylor, that she might have been doing, like, went ahead with that last story a few shows ago where the guy went down and he was going to cut the shark in the belly. I had a question about Valerie Taylor and whether she had, you know, done that in the past, testing out knives for a company. I went ahead and went through my newspaper archives on that. I looked online, but I didn't think you're going to find something online. If you're going to find it, I think it's going to be in the newspaper archives. But I went through, I don't know how many articles from 1966 to about 1977. I didn't go into any further than that. If she was going to do it, I would think it would be back in that time. I can't find anything on it. I wouldn't think she would ever do something like that. I've read her books from back in the 70s. Now, I am going to post a link to one of the stories that I got through, and I think it's mid-70s. I think it's 1974. But it's Valerie Taylor and her husband, and they're being interviewed. And I'm just going to share it so you can see, they point out the sharks that, man, we all need to worry about as far as being people. And the omission of the bull shark. It is not mentioned. They only mentioned 2 shark species in that. So you're talking 1974, they weren't even aware the bull shark was a danger yet. I thought that was interesting, and this isn't like somebody that doesn't work with sharks. She's been diving with sharks. Like I said, 1966 was the first stories I could see on her. This is 1974, and she doesn't know about bull sharks, that are dangerous to people. So they didn't know a lot about sharks at all when Jaws came out. And obviously the bull shark was not on their register. So that's our story on that one. Got those out of the way. The store, thank you all for ordering on both stores. Both stores are doing well. I myself, I bought just about everything at the store. Now this is the big bummer here. Vic, our buddy Vic Hislop has to wait. He is our what you've been thinking. My sharks have an attempt to predate down the one. This is the bomber jacket, and this is really nice. It's really light, and I don't know why they have sharks here, but that's probably just a mistake. But you got the big blue sharks happen on the back. This thing fits perfectly, but the wrists are not. I finally I emailed my supplier Printful, who I use for everything, and let them know about this. I can barely get this thing off of my hand. I would be selling tons of these. I love these. I'd be designing them and buying them myself. This is very comfortable. It's a large. Everything fits, except this needs to be either elastic or maybe another ½ inch. I mean, maybe another ½ inch bigger, and I'd be able to sell them. But that's why I took the bomber jacket off of the store temporarily, hopefully. I let Printful know. First of all, I let them know that I love everything I've seen. I mean, me and my wife have bought just about everything in the store, including I get to go down to the Keys next week, and this is what I'm going to lay out on now. My Sharks Happen towel. I love this thing. But we bought just about everything from Printful that supplies my store, and I love it all. I mean, I couldn't be more pleased with how everything comes out, how everything is, how it feels, everything. So I'm happy as could be with the store. Thank you so much for helping me out. I've had people ask me, how can we donate? I'd rather have you just buy something and get something. You're supporting the channel, but you're also getting something. I don't like a one-way thing. I understand I'm entertaining you, giving you information, but you're also watching me, you're supporting me. And that's plenty right there. So if you want to do anything further than watch and support the channel that way, then buy some merchandise, and that's it. That's all you got to do. And you can get something really nice. I mean, I've had nothing but compliments on everything so far. So it's been good. That's why I went through, it took me, when I do this research to find out what is best for me, it takes me a long time, days of running through and looking at all these different print-on-demand sites, and that one seemed to be the best, and I could not be happier with them. The jacket is one thing, and I brought it to their attention, and hopefully they can make those a little bit bigger, and I'll carry the jackets again. So that's our information about the store. Again, thank you to all that. We'll be at 60,000 soon, on our way to 100,000 and more. We're just getting started. We're not even 400 attacks in of probably over 3,000 by the time we get there. So we're going to be here for quite a while, which I'm sure you're glad to hear. So now we're going to go over to Moreton Bay, which is over in Australia. And this is 1989. So Vic Hislop, the legend of the shark hunter over there, he was in the midst of taking, I think he took 8 sharks in a matter of a couple weeks at the time, or 6 great whites in like 9 days. He had caught those. But while he was fishing for them, a 10-foot great white they said, leapt out of the water along the side of his boat, and was able to gash him in the arm. It bit Vic. So one of them sharks got some revenge on Vic, came up, bit him in the arm, and actually did some tendon damage to him in the process. Vic said that he's probably getting older in his old age, a little bit slow in his old age, so that's how he ended up getting bitten. But luckily, we're not even going to count this. That's a fishing accident. Anytime you're fishing, you're bit by a shark. I never call that an attack. You got bit by a fish. So that's how we count that. I hope you enjoyed the show. I'm going to be back in the Keys in about a week here, and that's going to be my last trip down until February 25th and 26th when I go down there for the first of the 2 weekends in a row of being at a booth. I'll be at the booth at the Founders Park Nautical Flea Market, and then I'm going to get the information when I go see my father. I'm going to get the information. I'll have that when I get back for the week afterwards. Also, if you come down, I've had somebody mention that I don't have grays. I have grays. They're a lot less than they used to be, though. My sister down in the Keys, my older sister Wendy, and my first youngest sister. I got 3 sisters, and the 2 older sisters, one of them's older, one of them's younger than me, but they both run this med spa, and that's also in the Keys. It's very close to Founders Park. And I went there, I had a bald spot in the back of the head. You know, this was starting to bald up a little bit on the sides, and they were telling me about some treatment they do. So what they do is they take a vial of my blood, and then they put that in this centrifuge, and it spins around, and it gets this golden looking oil out of it, golden looking juice. And then they take and put that in syringes, and then they inject it in your head all over and in the bald spot back here. Now, it is painful. First time I did it, I didn't have the what do you call that, nitrous oxide. They have nitrous oxide that helps with, you know, it being painful, and she's really good at doing it very quick. I mean, it doesn't take long to get a whole syringe full of stuff into your head. I went through 3 different procedures of that over probably a year. So it's painful, it's not intolerable, and I think it works. I had a ton of grays before I did it, and now I just have a couple little strips of grays here again, and it seems to have filled in my bald spot a little bit. And not that it was bald, it's not going to put hair on your bald spot, but it was lacking of hair and starting to look bald, and it seemed to have worked. I don't think I'll ever do it again. I might, but you know, I don't know. But that's my sister's med spa. It's called Miller Med Spa. If you ever go down to the Keys, that's my sister Wendy and Val. And if you come down for the nautical flea market, you can meet me and Captain Hal, my father, who sells just the best deep drop rigs you ever saw. He does them all off of one line and uses enough crimps so that when that goes in the water, the bait automatically goes away from the line itself. Very good rigs. He's doing very well down there. He sells them to all the stores down there, and he sells them at the flea market. So if you come down at the end of February down to the Keys, we can hang out a little bit at the flea market. We can have a little chat, and then I probably go out to some public spot to have some drinks and dinner afterwards. So everybody's welcome. You should come down and hang out. Other than that, you know, if you go into that water, you are much more afraid of those sharks than they are of you.